I can't remember quite when it was that Lord Reid said the Home Office was not fit for purpose, but it certainly looks like it this week. It's a shambles. There's no other word to describe it. A total shambles. And it's very embarrassing for the government, particularly for Suella Braverman. I hope she doesn't resign over this. I think it would be the wrong moment to resign. They've got to get out of this, but it's going to take some time. And unfortunately, although we're only talking at the moment about 39 people on this barge, where the issue is far bigger, as you've just mentioned, it's going to be the focal point. And sometimes it's the focal points that bring individual politicians down. The smaller, almost, I daren't say trivial, because it's not trivial, but I mean, it does seem that this was an administrative, bureaucratic screw-up, quite frankly, and politicians are going to pay the price for it.
So, I mean, you're saying you don't want Suella Braverman to resign over this, but there are calls for her to be sacked.
Yes,
Do you
absolutely.
think it will come to that? Because, as you say, it's an administrative error. This was simply overlooked, wasn't it? I mean, the water systems should have been looked into before these people were moved
Well,
forward.
of course, they were looked into,
they were.
but what happened was there was a delay in the test results getting back. And unfortunately, Mr. Jenrick spoke in public and said they're absolutely safe before those results had come through. So he looks, the immigration minister, Robert Jenrick, he looks very, very foolish now, as does Suella Braverman. But again, I think she's got so much else to sort out. We're waiting for the Supreme Court judgment on the European Convention of Human Rights issue in terms of whether they can send the people to Rwanda. Now, we haven't had that judgment yet. Everyone keeps saying it's imminent, but there doesn't seem to be any sign of it.
No.
But it would be helpful to have that so one could know one way or the other. And then people would say we've got to come out of the European Convention of Human Rights, which will provoke an enormous uproar. And I think it's the last thing the government needs.
It's interesting because they're blaming Jenrick because he took his eye off the ball. Of course, he was in Turkey, giving them £3 million to try and sort the boat building problem at source, the civil service. Are they working from home too much? You know, the bête noire of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Are they in their pyjamas and missing the opportunity? But the buck has to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, this just says time and time again, no matter what the proposed solution, that this is the government that just cannot organise a drink-up in a brewery. Well,
I think the problem is the Home Office has such a broad brief. It covers crime, immigration, terror. There's been calls for it to be split in two for many years. And I think something does need to be done because clearly it's not working. And I think it would be better for Suella Braverman to try and sort it out than have to resign over this matter.
Yeah, well, I don't think it would go that far up the food chain, do you? They'll look for somebody to try and to kind of throw under the bus down the line.
Yeah, it'll be a junior official who failed to send the results in the right way or inform the right people. Yeah.
Piers, where do we go from here? Because it seems as though, I mean, we know how big the backlog is of illegal immigrants who want to claim asylum in this country. We need to house them. With £6 million a day being spent on hotels. Well, currently it seems like we can't even make one barge work. And we're going to need hundreds of them, potentially thousands.
Well, yes. I mean, the barge was never going to be the complete solution. It was filling in a gap and trying to get some people out of the hotels. The big question is whether the Rwanda will be allowed to go ahead, or if not, there is whether Plan B, the Ascension Islands, which is at least a British territory, but it would be hugely expensive and take a very long time to put in the infrastructure and get any of these things moving. The thing this government doesn't have is time. They're running out of time. They're also, the Conservative Party, shocking news today, looks like they've lost 16% of their membership. And they've also, incredibly, at the same time, put up the subscription rates. And why on earth they've done that at a time when loyal Conservatives are increasingly disillusioned with this government, who don't seem to be doing anything that I would call conservative.
Here's a question for you, Piers. At the last general election in 2019, I fought in the election. I heard on every doorstep, the Tories simply said, oh, it'll be much worse under Corbyn.
Yeah.
Will that work with this thorny topic of illegal immigration, because they keep saying, oh, it'll be much worse under Starmer. You know, he's in bed with the lawyers. Will that wash, or is there just a symptomatic failure now at the heart of the Conservative Party? Or is this something we just cannot stop and something that we'll have to live with, because there are 1 billion people around the world at any one time on the trail looking for a better life, and they are choosing Britain because we're a brilliant country. Is this just something we're going to have to get used to?
Well, I think it's not just us, it's everyone. And a key point to me is that Europe is a very big place, and France is a much bigger country than the small island of Great Britain. We have much less space,
yes,
let alone the facilities. And the reason so many illegal immigrants choose us is because we're a soft touch and we give them all the benefits they want, and they can live, in their view, a far better lifestyle without actually contributing anything in many cases. And so we are attractive. But I think that the powers that be have to get together and try and look at an international solution, because these immigrants come from different places for different reasons, some of them perfectly legitimate, some of them not, some of them actually coming here deliberately to start a life of crime or continue a life of crime. And I think the immigration problem is so big now and so international, it requires real international collaboration and proper long-term thinking, not short-term solutions like this ridiculous barge in Dorset. That was never going to be a key element in fixing the problem.
I mean, but Piers, the context remains that one of those 5 pledges from Rishi Sunak is to stop the small boats, and it does seem, well, ridiculous.
Well,
at
unfortunately,
this point,
if you make pledges and you set yourself targets, you've got to keep them in politics. And it's a very dangerous thing to do. They've done this, and they're not going to make, looks like, any of the pledges the way things are going. And, you know, as I say, they don't have time to fix everything, because these solutions are long-term. They're not going to be sorted out in a year or even 2 years. It's not... I mean, I feel sorry for the government. And, I mean, the Labour Party don't have any real solution. Well, their solution is to give more immigrants visas more easily. And I think that would just encourage more people to come. So I don't see how that solves anything. And I do think Martin's point is right. On the doorstep, I don't think people would trust Keir Starmer to do a better job than Suella Braverman. Far from it. Although I think immigration is not the #1 issue as it has been in the past. I think the #1 issue is the cost of living and then tax. And, I mean, we're very highly taxed as a country now. There are so many taxes that really you do question. And a Conservative government should be a party of low taxes, free market and encouraging economic growth. At the moment, we're not seeing any of that.